हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste, friends. Welcome to session 36 of the new series Gift Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation, a study of selected verses from Bhagavad Gita based on Shankara Bhashya. We are in the midst of seventh chapter called Gnana Vijnana Yoga. In today's session, we are taking up verses from 7.21 to 7.25. To explain these verses, we have Srimati Meenakshi Madhusudan, Dr. Sandhya Ravi, Srimati Apeksha, Dr. Manjula B, and Dr. Rajeshwari. Dr. Ravi Shankar sir will moderate the session and bring out the final points. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Shankar sir.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. In the Prathama Shatakam, we saw the understanding of the Jiva Swarupa, Jiva Prayatna, and the Karma Yoga aspects. In the Madhyama Shatakam, Ishvara Swarupa, Ishvara Anugraha, and Ishvara Dhyana has been the topics. As we move into this particular Jnana Vijnana Yoga, the Ishvara Swarupa, known as the Sagura Ishvara Jnanam, is Jnanam, and the Nirguna Ishvara Jnanam is called as Vijnanam. Anadi Ishvara was explained as a mixture of Anadi Chetana and Anadi Achetana Tattvam. We also understood in the verses 13 to 19 that the Karana of the samsara is preoccupation with apara prakriti, and the parihara for this is the jnanam of para prakriti. At this point of time, Lord Shri Krishna introduces quite a big dose of bhakti and says bhakti is a means, and he says artha bhakta, artharthi bhakta, jignasu bhakta are the types of bhaktas on the kind of bhakti they have. But he says that the Jnani Bhakta is the one who knows that the source of peace, security, and happiness is Para Prakriti Bhakti only. In today's session, as we go from the 20th to the 26th verses, 21st to 25, but during these parts of the verses, Bhakti has been more clearly understood based on the motive, and that could be Sakama Bhakti or Nishkama Bhakti. The top secret that has been clearly given by Sri Krishna is that Sakama Bhakti is the only means to arrive at Nishkama Bhakti. You begin with Sakama Bhakti, but Sakama Bhakti is incomplete without arriving at Nishkama Bhakti, which means that Sakama Bhakti is necessary. But this is another secret and a big word of caution. Sakama Bhakti is additive, it's addictive, it cannot give moksha, it becomes an obstacle to Nishkama Bhakti. I would like to bring your notice again to the 19th verse. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavanman prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. The Anvaya is Jiva or Manushya, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Bhutva Mam Prapadyate. They have to get this Jnanam, but it is after many Janmas, and they have to get this understanding that I pray to Sri Krishna as the moksha part. What is this Jnanam is a question that comes. Are we ignorant? The Paramatma can never be ignorant, so we the Jivatma are. So the Jnanam has to be understood as neither Jivatma nor Paramatma, but Ekatma. That is Jivatma, Paramatma, Visheshana, Rahita, Eka Atma Mayam Sarvam. And so this very important phrase which we should understand and which Dr. Timap Hegde sir has told us quite a few times earlier. Vasudeva. Vasuhu is the Sadrupa Atma, Devaha is the Chidrupa Atma, and Vasudeva Sarvam or Sarvam Vasudeva is Satchidrupa Atma Eva Sarvam, Sarvam Atmamayam Jagat. Swami Paramarthananda ji says in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Idam Brahma, Idam Kshatram, Ime Loke, Ime Veda, Ime Deva, Imani Bhutani, and so on, explaining that Sarvam Atmamayam Jagat. The samskaras that we earn through various janmas brings us to Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha Samshaya. And then we get into Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. That is the only way for Pratyagatmanam, understanding of the Atma. Shankaracharya says, you are Vasudeva. Vasudeva is myself, myself. Pratyakshata is right here and now. Vasudeva is not the Vaikuntha Vishnu. So this aspect of bhakti, which comes in the 19th verse, goes on, and now the understanding that we should have, and Sri Krishna says, is look, in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna represents moksha, but everybody is running towards Sakama Bhakti, which means I, as moksha, I am the form of Sri Krishna, is being deserted, and Sakama Bhakti is ruling the roost. So we are praying to Lord Krishna, we are praying to Lord Rama, and several thousands of devatas that we have based on our gunas and based on what our thoughts are. We pray to those kind of devatas. Sakama Bhakti is ruling the roost. Let us understand these aspects in more detail. May I now request Srimati Meenakshi to present the 21st verse of chapter 7.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om, the verse proper. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayarchitumicchati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. The literal meaning of this is, whichever devotee desires to worship faithfully any particular form, I stabilize that very faith of that devotee. So this verse allows a devotee to grasp the final subtleties of the universal Lord. It addresses many critical questions one may have in spirituality. Next slide, sir. In the beginning of this chapter, verse 7.7, it was shown how Krishna is the spiritual principle, the common truth that holds together the multiple universe of names and forms. These set of verses provide us with a set of excellent examples proving the universality of the divine song Bhagavad Gita. It was also said that the threefold mental temperaments or gunas work so strongly that sometimes it fails to recognize the divine self. Because of this reason, not all devotees have the vision of pursuing the infinite Ishvara. The Supreme Lord recognizes this fact. So, the finite form of the Lord manifesting as Anya Devatas are resorted to by bhaktas. It is very well known that all men do not worship at the same altar. Each one approaches the same truth by worshipping the idol of his own heart. A Sakama Bhakta who wants to fulfill various desires will consult various scriptures to find out that particular Devata who can fulfill that particular desire. In this verse, Krishna gives a ray of hope to all those Sakama Bhaktas worshipping various deities. Next slide, sir. Yaha yaha bhaktaha tanum architum ichchati, those devotees who wish to worship Anya Devatas. Tanum here means a particular deity. Veda Purva Bhaga contains vast literature on these Anya Devatas. Tasya tasya shraddham achalam vidadhami means I reinforce his bhakti or devotion by fulfilling his desires. The precondition for this is faith or shraddha. There is nothing wrong in desiring or asking for something finite. All notions of spirituality, no matter how finite the goal, are equally valid. They have the power to lift us from our egoic center towards the universal truth. We may take an example here. If we ask Saraswati Devi for success in exams, it is Ishvara alone who delivers that success through Saraswati Devi. The Lord ensures that our faith in Saraswati Mata is strengthened. Faith in Devi is what a bhakta should have while worshipping. Thus, Sakama Bhakti becomes a valid bhakti. Higher the faith, higher the benefit. Also means no faith, no benefit. Next slide, sir. Further, in the world outside, it is very well known that the greater an individual attaches himself to an idea or thought, the more he becomes fixed to those temperaments or relationships. A devotee may choose a deity of his choice for worshipping. He gets fixed with those thoughts of the deity, but then thoughts belong to the realm of nature or prakriti, and thus thoughts become the world. The all-pervading self, that is Sri Krishna Paramatma, is the essential substratum of this world. Hence, Sri Krishna clearly states that he is present in all those devatas who grant various boons to seekers. If the devotion towards the deity is genuine, the Lord accepts it, whatever be the mode of worship. Every person is free to worship the divine in any form. It's just that men are given infinite choice to worship any form which appeals to their imagination and according to their sanskars. The path may be different, but there has to be progress towards the final destination without any deviation in Bhakti Marga. The Lord then blesses such a devotee with stronger faith and devotion towards the devatas of his choice. The Taittiriya Upanishad emphasizes that the Supreme Being or Paramatma is also present in the hearts of Anya Devatas or demigods in order to fulfill the desires of the living entities. But both the demigod and the living entity are dependent on the supreme will. The Lord manifests his unseen omnipresence in the visual forms of different devatas and confers his blessing on the devotees. In Swami Chinmayananda's words, Krishna declares that in all churches, mosques and temples, in public places or in private institutions, in the open and in the sky, in the quiet huts and in the silent caves, whatever and whatsoever form any devotee seeks to worship with Shraddha, the Lord says, I make his faith unwavering. Thus, at the foot of every altar, it is Krishna, the Self, that constantly supplies more and more faith to nourish the expanding fields of devotion in the sincere devotees. Next slide, sir. As in the famous shloka, every worship offered to any deity will ultimately reach the Lord alone. Akashat patitam toyam yatha gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaraha keshavam pratigacchati. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much for highlighting and bringing out that essence of the main Krishna as the consciousness principle and the Anya Devatas. We have now come to this state where Sakama Bhakti gives us to do Sakama Puja. So we get Sakama Phala through the Karya Devatas. And it is a cycle. It's a perpetuating Bhakti. And this is not the absolute Karana Ishvara. A point that is highlighted in the Bhashyam by Adi Shankaracharya is that this attitude of Sakama Bhakti itself is a Punar Janma Vasana, and that perpetuates samsara because Maya Devi is very successful. So this liberating Bhakti gets converted into samsara perpetuating bhakti. Finite devata worship goes to one infinite Ishvara, and the Karya Devata Aradhanam goes to the Karana Ishvara. The Karana Ishvara fulfills the results through Karya Devata has been very clearly brought out in this verse. Swami Paramarthanandaji very clearly explains, very important, thoughtful expression is this aham vidadhami. Instead of saying devata vidadhati, Sri Krishna says, I give it through the Anya Devatas. And this Anya Devatas are what we should understand in the Bhashyam. Sri Krishna says, go only to Vasudeva. Shankaracharya gives the meaning of the word. Vasudevat is equal to Atmanah. Don't go to any Devata whom he now calls as Anatma. He says, go to Devata which is Atma, which is the Para Prakriti alone. Let's understand this in the next verse. May I now request Dr. Sandhya Ravi to explain the 22nd verse of the chapter 7.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So this chanting the 22nd verse. Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanam Ihate Labhate cha tatha kaman Mayaiva Vihitan Hitan. So verses 21 and 22 are quite similar in that both tell us how and in what form the Sakama Bhaktas are rewarded. Lord Krishna says the Sakama Bhakta can worship any of the Anya Devatas, seeking finite benefits. We have heard the previous speaker say, is this valid? Yes, this is valid and successful only if the worship is done as per the scriptures. Our wants and needs are many as we go through life. And Sakama Bhakti is a sturdy anchor that can give us the desired result at a finite level only. In fact, the Shastras themselves prescribe the chanting of a dhyana shloka, making of a sankalpa, stating our wish for what we desire before we undertake any puja. But a bhakta endowed with this kind of shraddha, as we heard in the previous verse, Sataya Shraddhaya, which has been made steadfast by divine grace. The greater the shraddha, the greater the grace, as we saw. And this is due to Purva Janma Vasanas, Yaya Swabhavata Purvam Pravrittaha, that gets reinforced as Adi Shankara explains in his Bhashya. A person may be worshipping Karya Devatas like Ganesha, Saraswati, Kubera, Indra, Varuna, etc. with a particular desire in mind, performing Sakama Puja with Sakama Bhakti. This keeps getting reinforced. More and more Bhakti, this keeps getting reinforced. And what seems like a very auspicious activity actually results in an entanglement in a vicious cycle. So Sakama Puja done with Sakama Bhakti results in Sakama Phalam. We see people obsessed with astrology, Vastu, etc. While all these may be valid practices to achieve a desired result, getting entangled in this web is discouraged for a spiritual seeker. In the Bhakti ladder, next slide please, the Sakama Bhakti is a preparatory step for higher spiritual goals. As Sir said, it is a very important step. You cannot go further without Sakama Bhakti. But along with the advantages, there are disadvantages too. So it is valid, it is capable of giving us the desired result, but there is uncertainty about achieving this result because the worship has to be done as it is prescribed in the Shastras. The Nitya Naimitika karmas have to be done properly. It is addictive, just like gambling. Every time one gets a desired result, it makes one go for it again and again. And once the power of Sakama Bhakti is experienced, it becomes a pratibandha or obstacle to spiritual progress, which is Nishkama Bhakti. So we move further and further away from Chitta Shuddhi, Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Jnana, and even Moksha becomes a very distinct, remote possibility. Next slide, please. So the Anvaya of this verse is Sathaya Shraddhaya Yukta Tasya Radhanamihate Tatahi Maya Eva Vihitan Tan Kaman Labhate Cha. Swataya Madvihitaya Shraddhaya, as Adi Shankara says, the Sakama Bhakta, whose faith in Sakama Bhakti got reinforced by me, endowed with that Yukta, Radhanam Ihate, he performs the worship, Tasya, of the various Anya Devatas, and because of the intense Shraddha and Bhakti, he'll certainly obtain the desired objects, Labhate Kaman. But who grants the phala? Seemingly, it is the Devatas. So the Manda Bhakta thinks it is the Devatas. But Krishna reminds us that it is the Karana Brahman, the omniscient one, who knows which karma deserves which phala. Vihitan Kama. Vihitan hi Kaman. Hitan, Adi Shankara says, can be read as a single word, which would make the meaning as good desires for a bhakta's well-being. But we know that all worldly desires are inherently flawed and result in samsara. Just as Nachiketas pointed out in the Kathopanishad, they are flawed by dukkha mishritatvam, atriptikaratvam, and bandhakatvam. And one would do well to avoid this trap. Next slide. So in conclusion, Sri Krishna says, Mayaiva vihitan kama. All those desires are fulfilled by me alone. And the learning from these two verses is that all forms are the form of the one Supreme. Their worship is the worship of the Supreme. And the giver of all rewards is the Supreme. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for a crystal clear explanation of this verse. As we go through the Shankar Bhashya, Swami Paramarthanandaji highlights, and it was so revealing to understand the meaning of this word hitan. I would like to share here. Hitatvam kamanam upacharitam kalpyam nahi kama hita kaschatit. The moolam is vihitan hi tan kaman. Sri Shankaracharya has taken hitan as two separate words. Hitan kaman means good desires, which will be fulfilled by Lord Krishna, the Anya Devata. But the Vedantic angle is worldly desires can never be good desires. So kaschachit, worldly desires have these three doshas, which we know as BAD. Hence, Sakama Bhaktas are unfortunately very unintelligent, he says, and this bhakti for infinite moksha is being used for finite purposes. Therefore, Antavat sadhana is a vyapara, which is a avivekinaha for a muda, and he is a kaminaha. That is what is the explanation of a sakama bhakta. May I now request Srimati Apeksha to explain the 23rd verse of this chapter 7 to further understand the verse.
Antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavatya alpamedasam devan devyajo yanati mad bhaktaha yanti mamapi. The result accruing to those indiscriminate ones is indeed finite. The worshippers of God attain gods. The worshippers of me will attain only me. So here Lord Krishna is issuing actually a statutory warning for the Sakama Bhaktas, where he says that the Sakama Bhakti is actually very wonderful and enjoyable because you do enjoy when you get all these worldly gains. But it has three doshas, and we are going to see what are those three doshas here. First is Dukkha Mishritatvam. So what is Dukkha Mishritatvam? It's like a coin, right? Every coin has two sides, heads and tails, right? Where similarly, this Dukkha Mishritatvam is that these worldly pleasures that we are involved into, these are two sides of the coin. It has pleasure as well as pain. So every materialistic thing that involves us, there are three stages to us. One is acquisition, right? There's struggle, there's anxiety, tension, fear. For example, you're seeing the photograph of Kaun Banega Crorepati. And if you want to be a participant in that, then you'll be, you'll have anxiety, fear, whether my request will be accepted, I'll get an invite to be there or not, right? And then if suppose you're selected and then you go and you win a money, right? Then there will be a problem that, whether you're going to win that money, whether they are going to keep you in the show or not in the show. So the retention is the problem. And afterwards, if you have earned some money out of it, then there will be the feeling of the loss, that what everything will be lost in a matter of time, right? So every materialistic thing involves three stages. The pain will be directly proportional to the pleasure I derive. And remember, every worldly pleasure is a potential pain. You can apply this at any point of your life and see that every worldly pleasure is a potential pain. Atripti karatvam. Every accomplishment that we achieve in life, that nowadays people of our generation is going mad over career results, and I have to achieve this, I have to achieve that. Only if I have $1 billion company, only if will have VC funding, or I'll become a CEO of the company, then only I'll be successful. But believe me, everyone who has been a CEO, everyone who has made $1 billion company, they say that every accomplishment is just finite in nature. Once even you reach to that stage, you are never ever contented, because after 1 billion, then there's 10 billion, then there's 100 billion. There's always, the next possibility. Or we are always stuck in the disease of comparison, right? Because it leads to either inferiority complex and jealousy. Like this person on the top, there will always be one person who will be higher than him, and he will always have that disease of comparison. So no human being will be satisfied with any amount of wealth. Otherwise, why would there be corruption at higher levels, right? Because see, right now we can live our life with a particular, range, but still we want more, 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 and everyone is just running after more and more. So Swami Dayananda ji has said a very beautiful line. He is a poor man or a poor moneyed man. He was poor without money, now he is poor with money, right? Poverty never goes as finite plus finite, because finite plus finite will always be finite, right? So poverty will always be there. Therefore, I always travel from apurnam to apurnam in material accomplishment. Because even if I reach to, the ninth level, and I'll say I'll pass in 9, then I'll be successful. I'll pass in 10, then I'll be successful. Even if you combine all these, finite plus finite achievement, it will always be finite. Right? It will always be finite in nature, and you will always be poor in life. Either when you didn't have money, you'll be poor. Even when you have money, then also you'll be poor, because you are never ever satisfied. All these accomplishments keep me in finite level. My distance from infinity is the same. Now we will go to bandhakatvam. Bandhakatvam, right? Bandhak, when you are, slave. When you are addicted or you are a slave to your weakness, right? Once you're used to these accomplishments, then you can never think of losing them, right? There's an addiction. If I have achieved 1 Grand Slam, then I would want 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the list goes on, right? So Sakama Bhakti will always keep a person in this sansara only. Material progress is definitely there in Sakama Bhakti, but there's no spiritual fall, or there's no spiritual progress. So basically, there will not be a fall, because you're running after material, possessions, but there'll never be a spiritual progress also, right? So you are spiritually stagnated in Sakama Bhakti. Now, what is stagnation? Stagnation is remaining at the constant level. You're neither going high, progressing, neither you are falling down. So Nishiddha karma, we have 3 types of karma. So Nishiddha karma, which are banned in our scriptures, you will have spiritual fall. Nishkama karma are the best karmas, where you are, leaned you are leaned in bhakti marg, you are deep, you are one with the consciousness. Those karma leads to spiritual growth, right? When you do meditation, when do you yoga, or when you are, helping others without expecting the results, then there's sakama karma, spiritual stagnation. We just saw, right? So an atheist is going to always say, right? There's no God, there's no God, there's no God. The Sakama Bhakta also cries, but in front of God. The difference is that. And he will ask, oh, this has happened to me, that has happened to me, please help me in that. So the Sakama Bhakta is also crying just like an atheist. They are the most unintelligent people. Why? Because Lord Krishna say, through the very same worship, they could seek infinite moksha instead of, the finite result. Because the same Bhagwan that you are worshipping to has two pockets, Shreyas and Prayas. Unintelligent people we have chosen a wrong destination where they want prayers, where they'll pray for fame, money, position, people. But everything will be lost in time. This is the reality. So, Lord Krishna says, you have chosen the wrong goals. Krishna says, do not blame me. Worshippers of finite devta will get finite results only, because finite plus finite is always finite. Because according to the scriptures, all the gods in the heaven are none other than the ordinary jivas only, which have been sent to the next, in their next life, they have been upgraded. They've got the exalted position because of their punya karma. Nishkama Bhakta are the most intelligent ones. Why? Because any devotee of the infinite will always come to me. Here, the me does not represent the finite form of Krishna Shariram. Krishna's body symbolizes the infinite Brahman or the infinite consciousness. Therefore, going to Krishna here means that the Nishkama Bhakta will always come to me because they are devotees of the finite. It means that they will attain the infinite represented by the finite Shariram.
That was a nice explanation about the verse. And the point that we should understand now is that Sakama Bhakti gives us more of samsara because they coexist, and the bhaktas of the Anya Devatas continue to get samsara. The effort that has been put for this Sakama Bhakti and the Nishkama Bhakti is just the same. It is only the thought process that changes and transforms what we are looking for. Therefore, Krishna Bhaktas, the ones who understand this as the Nirguna Brahma Bhaktas, such Krishna Bhaktas get moksha. While Nachiketas was having his discussions with Yamadharma Raja, maybe at one point Yamadharma Raja lamented and said, as a human, I could have probably asked for Atma Jnanam like you are asking, but I wanted to become a Dharma Raja as a Yama, and hence I am continuing to do this job of mine over and over and over again. We move to the 24th verse. The question that Sri Shankaracharya has put in his Bhashyam is, Kim nimittan mam eva na prapadyante iti uchyate. Why is it that people don't vote for me? And here it means the Nirguna Brahma. Let us look at this explanation in the 24th verse of the same chapter. And now I request Dr. Manjula B to explain this verse.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, verse number 7.24. Avyaktam Vyaktimapannam Manyante Mam Abudhyaha Param Bhavam Ajanantaha Mam Avyayam Anuttamam. The word meaning of the verse goes like this: Ajanantaha, not knowing, Mama Param Bhavam, my supreme nature, Avyayam, which is changeless, immutable, Anuttamam, unsurpassed, Abudhayam, the indiscriminate foolish ones, Manyante, consider, Mam, me, Avyaktam, to be unmanifest, Apannam, which has assumed, Vyaktim, manifestation. not knowing my supreme nature, which is changeless and unsurpassed, the indiscriminate ones considered to be the unmanifest, which has assumed manifestation. Here, Lord Krishna points out the limitations of Sakama Bhakti. Lord Krishna in this verse differentiates Sakama Bhakti and Nishkama Bhakti. Sakama Bhakti helps to perpetuate samsara, whereas Nishkama Bhakti will lead to liberation. Sakama Bhaktas are enamored by Apara Prakriti. Nishkama Bhaktas are aware of superiority of Para Prakriti. In Apara Prakriti, it is a material aspect of Ishvara and physical body of Ishvara. As long as person thinks Bhagwan as Apara Prakriti, he thinks that Bhagwan is subject to arrival and departure. Bhagwan will be appearing and disappearing, will become visible and invisible. For example, Sakama Bhaktas thinks Bhagwan gives darshan at a particular time in temple, and at times darshanam is withdrawn. Hence, there is appearance and disappearance. Pujya Swami Paramarthananda ji gives us examples from avatars to help us understand this better. In Krishna Avatara, Bhagavan has come and gone. It indicates they look upon Bhagavan as his body. In Puranas, Bhaktas did tapas for getting darshanam of the Lord. They look upon God as Avyaktam. After darshanam of Bhagavan, they say Bhagavan has become Vyaktam. These expression can be called as Vyaktam Bhagavan and Avyaktam Bhagavan. Para Prakriti Bhagavan is not subject to appearance and disappearance or Vyaktam Avyaktam transformation. Para Prakriti is Nitya Vyaktam. Once we choose Para Prakriti, we are in the direction of moksha. Once we sit in meditation for darshanam, then we are in Apara Prakriti. Therefore, indiscriminate people, the Ajnanis, think before Krishna Avatara, Bhagavan was Avyaktam, and after Krishna Avatara, Bhagavan has become Vyaktam. People consider the visible physical body form of the Lord, which is not the real God. People do this mistake as they does not understand the unembodied Bhagavan. As long as they are in this condition, they continue to become Artha Bhaktas and Artharthi Bhaktas. And therefore, these Bhaktas continue to be Samsaris also. Hence, during problems, they question the existence of Bhagavan because they feel being great Bhaktas, they shouldn't be suffering or they should not have any problem. Hence, whenever they face the problem, they think the Bhagavan is not there. Hence, Shastras recommend we need to start with Saguna Ishwaran but never end with Saguna Ishvara. Saguna Ishvara is wonderful as a starting point, never wonderful as a destination. Destination must be Nirguna Ishvara only. We need to become Jignasu Bhaktas or Gnani Bhaktas. Saguna Bhakti is to fulfill the means and not for the end goal. Hence, Krishna wants, do not choose the wrong goal. Destination must be Nirguna Ishvara only. Thank you. Hari Om.
That was a nice explanation. And the point that comes out is it is the Maya which is so attractive as Mohini. And therefore, we look for prayers. We are stuck in samsara. And therefore, we are always praying to the Apara Prakriti. But the not so attractive Shreyas, which is the Para Prakriti, with all these points explained now, is the one that we should look for. May I now request Dr. Rajeshwari D to explain the 25th verse of this chapter.
Good evening, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. As said earlier, in verse 24, Sri Krishna said that people perceive the Supreme Brahman as one with name and form. That is the Apara Prakriti. So, in verse 25, he explains why this happens. The verse is, Na aham prakashaha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudovyam na abhijanati loko mam avyam ajam. So, veiled by the delusive power of Yoga Maya, I do not stand revealed to all. This delusion world, knows me not, who is unborn and immutable. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The Anvaya is Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrataha. To those covered with this Yogamaya, Na Aham Prakashaha. I am not revealed. Sri Krishna says this. Mudoyam Loko. Those who are deluded. Na Abhijanati. They do not know whom, Mam, me. Ajam Avyayam, who is unborn and unchanged. Next slide, please. So we need to know, why do people, all of us, behave as though we are limited entities, limited by the egocentric nature of us. This is because this Yoga Maya is covering us, is covering the Atma. What is this Yoga Maya? It is just fabrication of the Prakriti's constituents, and it is tied up by the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. As I said, Atma is covered. So what happens is, we think of Atma as the doer. When you want to objectively recognize Atma, it is not possible. For a student, especially a beginner, to understand this concept of Yoga Maya is the most difficult if he tries to look at it objectively. So once we apply the knowledge subjectively to us, we will be able to understand the concept. So Yoga Maya, the Atma is covered. Atma, knowledge of the Atma and the object of knowledge cannot be different. We need to understand this. And there may be a question, because Sri Krishna is talking about this. Does it not affect him? He's the one who is also responsible for this Maya. It does not affect him because it is subject to his control. He is the Mayavi after all. How does it not affect? Just like a juggler has control of all the balls that he is juggling, Paramatma has control of this Yoga Maya. So it is from him. So it doesn't affect him. Like mirage water is clothing the desert, or the waves are obscuring the ocean, or actually the water, Yoga Maya is covering our Atma. Next slide, please. And Krishna has used the word Muda. So Muda is a strong word. Muda means deluded. Upanishads use even a stronger word as Vimuda, that is intense or very deluded. So Mudayam Lokaha. So this talks about the people of the world who are deluded by this Maya. What happens, as told in the previous verse, it's Mohini. It is very attractive. The worldly, the worldly things are very attractive. Like a big car, like even nature, or a beautiful house, ocean, river. We are so attracted by that. We are enamored by these materialistic things. So we do not perceive what is within us, the Atma, the Anandam and the Purnatvam. This is caused by the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva gives happiness, which is also a bond. Rajas, due to mental agitation, Raga, Dvesha, it leads to anger and sadness. Tamas, of course, dullness, as we all know. So this is the problem. This Mohini, as I said, and as told in the previous verses, Sakama Bhakti, Lord, increases our bhakti to the form we like. Sorry, 1 second. We see Sri Krishna as the charming person, epitome of friendship. We see Sri Rama as the, handsome king who protects the good people. And even Amba, Parvati, we see as someone who's beautiful and who slays the evil people. So for even God, we give name, form, and we want it to be attractive. This is the delusion that we all have. So we are carried away, we are enamored by this matter. So as said, we do not see the Purnatvam or the Anandam that is within us. We are searching for something within us without. Next slide, please. So as we know the problem is na abhijanati. They do not understand. Mam ajam avyayam. Shri Krishna says, the one who is unborn, therefore there is no death, there is no change. And we all know this is not the Krishna in that form. It is the Supreme Brahman. We need to know that. How to resolve this problem? We need to follow instructions by a guru, we need to diligently practice Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Next slide, please. So to conclude, to summarize this verse, the problem is we think we are Anatma, we do not know the Paramatma. That is most of the people in this world. The cause for that is Yoga Maya, which again is controlled by the Lord, and we are deluded by the world because of our gunas and vasanas. So the solution is Guru's guidance. We need to be able to give time to attend Shravanam. We need to do Shravanam. We need to do Mananam and Nididhyasanam. But the outcome of all this hard work is excellent. Guru will tell us Tattvamasi. He is going to tell us you are that. But like the water diviners, Sri Swami Param says, the water diviners can tell you where to dig for the water. But it is our job to dig and get that water and enjoy it. Similarly, the Guru water diviners can inform where to find what you're seeking. But the digging, how to dig, that is up to the student. That is, as I told earlier, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and eventually we'll get Atmanyanam as told in the Mahavakyam, Aham Brahmasmi. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much for a very nice explanation of this verse. Now comes a question. There is a confusion among us bhaktas. Whom do I pray to and what am I really doing? And Krishna gives the answer. I am the confusion giver also, he says. So tamas is the avidya maya, sattva is the vidya maya. Tamo guna pradhana avidya maya is the avarna shakti. Even the sattva guna pradhana vidya maya is the anavarna shakti. This is the important part that we should clearly understand. All these things that we have in our senses and mind, mati, and what we get through our shabda pramana, shrutis, they remain as avantara vakyas, or they give us only paroksha jnana if we don't experience it. And then we have the aparoksha jnana of the mahavakyas. This can happen only when the avarna shakti is removed, and that can happen with the mahavakyas itself. So the element of yoga maya, which plays in our own minds, is so important that we move from being deluded to more deluded to the most deluded with regards to Sri Krishna's para prakriti rupa, and we get stuck in apara prakriti. Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you, Dr. Ravishankar sir, and all speakers of the day for a wonderful session. Thank you, friends, for your active participation and invaluable feedback. Yesterday, we celebrated the auspicious Guru Purnima. In response to our appeal, many of you have sent your Guru Dakshina. We are highly thankful to you. For the benefit of those who have not yet done the remittance and desire to offer Guru Dakshina, the bank details to where the amount is to be sent is displayed on the screen. It is also available on WhatsApp groups and on Telegram. As I told earlier, the entire amount thus received will be offered as our collective Guru Dakshina to our various Gurus. I must add that this decision of offering and the amount of offering is purely voluntary. We will continue with our study of Mandukya Upanishad with Karikas 4 to 8 from Vaithatya Prakaranam in our session 10 on Friday, 26th July 2024. Let's tune in at 6:45 p.m. on that day. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.